Hey everyone, this is a really tragic story about betrayal. Make sure to listen all the way to the end, leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. He heard his own voice on the phone, but it wasn't him speaking. Same tone, same words, just not to her. "I miss you," the voice said, and the world he knew split in two. The part where things could still be explained, and the part where it was already too late. She stood in the doorway, pale, empty-eyed, holding that phone like a piece of evidence that needed no proof. He tried to speak, but the words stuck, not from fear, but from knowing that anything he said would sound false. It doesn't really happen in 1 second, living your life and then everything collapsing. The truth is, it starts breaking much earlier. You just refuse to see it. Months back, he thought he had everything under control. Work, family, wife, child, and orderly life with every shelf neatly arranged. Then, somewhere between those shelves, a crack appeared. He couldn't say exactly when. Maybe the day she didn't kiss him goodbye, or the first time he didn't notice she was crying. They just stopped being together, even while living under the same roof. He excused himself with fatigue, stress, the weight of carrying it all. And then another woman appeared. It began so routinely that he didn't even notice where he crossed the line. Meetings, projects, coffee after work. She was easy, confident, bold, the kind of person around whom he didn't have to be strong. With her, he felt alive. And that was the most dangerous part. At first, he waited for her messages, then for her laughter, then for her touch. He told himself, it doesn't mean anything. But every nothing grew bigger. The first time he lied to his wife, it felt like closing a door he'd never be able to open again. But he kept going. He thought you could live in two worlds, that if you didn't say it out loud, it didn't count as betrayal. He didn't know that silence is betrayal, too. Days went by, and the lies became as routine as brushing his teeth. He became an expert in believable stories, carefully placed glances and lines like, "Don't wait up, lots of work." At night, he sat with his phone, waiting for the other woman's messages, not seeing his wife next to him scrolling through vacation photos where they had once been happy. He didn't see that she had understood long before she heard his voice on that phone. Women feel before they see. And when she asked, "Are you happy?" he had no answer, because he suddenly realized he didn't even know what that meant anymore. Cheating is never sudden. It begins the moment one person stops being heard and the other stops listening. When conversations turn into schedules. When a home becomes a hotel and a look becomes a habit. He knew he was causing pain, but convinced himself he had it under control. That one day it would end on its own. Nothing ends on its own. Things end when the truth comes out. That evening he came home late. Rain poured down in sheets, and he felt as if it were washing the guilt off him. He walked in, took off his coat, and saw her in the hallway. She was holding the phone, the one with the recording. When she pressed play, he understood it was over. Not because he'd been caught, but because he heard himself from the outside. That voice wasn't his. There was no love in it, no respect, no meaning, only emptiness. She didn't scream, she didn't plead. She just stood there while tears fell on their own. "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer, because every reason that once sounded like an explanation now sounded insane. After that came chaos. Suitcases, silence, short phrases, their son's confused stare. He tried to explain, but you can't explain betrayal. It always sounds like a lie. She left. He stayed with the phone, the guilt, the silence. The first days he only existed. He went to work, ate, slept, breathed like a man still living. But every night he returned to an empty home where everything reminded him of her, the mug, the books, the scent, even the curtains she once chose. He tried to call, to write. She didn't answer. Weeks later, one short message arrived. "I don't want revenge, I just want to forget." He understood this was it. Not anger, not hurt, indifference. And indifference is the end of love. For the first time, he truly realized what he had lost. Not just a woman himself, the man who knew how to love, who knew how to be honest. He remembered their first date, first laughter, their first evening together, how they stood on the balcony, talked about the future, promised never to betray. And he understood. Cheating doesn't start with another person. It starts when you stop valuing what you have, when you stop being afraid to lose it. Months passed. He tried to live again, but everything reminded him. Other women, other faces, they all felt foreign. He wasn't looking for love. He was looking for forgiveness. And forgiveness didn't come. Because forgiving yourself is harder than forgiving anyone else. Sometimes he parked near her new place and watched her come out. Watched her laugh. Everything inside him tightened. Not from jealousy, from understanding. From knowing he no longer had the right to even walk up to her. Sometimes he dreamed she'd forgive him. Say, "I understand." It never happened. He stopped waiting, stopped hoping. One evening on his way home, he saw an old man on a bench feeding pigeons. They started talking. The old man said a line he never forgot. "It doesn't matter who you loved. What matters is who you betrayed." From then on, he understood. It isn't love that makes us human. It's loyalty. Even when it's hard, even when it's cold. Years dulled the pain, but the scar remained. He stopped lying to anyone, even himself. And when people asked why he was alone, he said, "Because once I confused attention with love." That became his truth. Sometimes at night he hears the rain, the same rain under which his lies began, and he closes his eyes. Now he knows. Betrayal doesn't start in a bed. It starts in a heart. And the worst part is that sometimes the heart is the first to betray.